Maybe higher education is not for me. Maybe all of that stuff's not for me. I'm good with real estate. I'll show them. Damn it, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm gonna figure it out. I went full head first into real estate. I went from being a solo agent to taking over as the area director here in the San Francisco Bay Area for our team. You know, when I think of business and when I think of the things I've accomplished and the people that came to work with me and seeing where they're at now, that's been one of the most rewarding experiences. This whole new division inside of Keller Williams opens up, which is the name, image, and likeness division. Thus, the NIL Real Estate Guy was born. What's going on, you guys? My name is Pablo Vidillo, and I am the NIL Real Estate Guy. Welcome to our very first episode. If you're here, it probably means that you're either a student athlete that is looking to maximize their NIL earnings and your time as an NIL athlete, or you're somebody who cares about real estate, leverage, business. How do I build myself a portfolio and how do I build something bigger? So, this first episode, we're not going to get too much into the NIL stuff. I know, I'm sorry. We're going to dive into me. I know, crazy and a little bit narcissistic. I 100% understand that. And before I can even get into all of this NIL stuff, you need to understand what lens it's coming and what actually makes me uniquely qualified to be able to teach this, to run this channel, and what makes me an authority on all of this stuff. So let's start at the beginning. 2006, I was a senior in high school. I know that's a lifetime ago. It feels like it was yesterday, but it wasn't. So 19 years ago, I was a senior in high school, and I thought I had done everything right. When it came to what they tell you you're supposed to do. And if you're anything like me, you've probably heard this advice. You get really good grades, you go to college. Once you go to college, from there you land a job, and then you're taken care of for the rest of your life. That wasn't my experience, right? And I wasn't a bad student in high school. I got pretty good grades. I had a 3.5 GPA my first couple years, and then my junior and senior year, I kicked it up a notch. I had a 4.0 and a 4.1 or something like that. I had A's. I had good grades. I was in the band. I was in jazz band, symphonic band. I was in the theater. I ran track. I played soccer. I did water polo for one season. I was on the freshman football team. Like, I did the things. I was in the community service. And when it came down to applying for colleges, I wish I had a better guide. I wish I had somebody who really cared and who really wanted to help me succeed, because from right there, I could have been one of those people that peaked in high school. And it would have been very easy for me to fall into that mindset. Because when it came down to applying for colleges, out of the 11 colleges I applied to, I only got into two. And instead of focusing on the two that accepted me and going to one of those two schools, I focused on the nine that rejected me. And I wish I had better guidance, and I wish I could go back to 18-year-old Pablo and just shake him. But at the same time, I don't, because had I done that, I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't be teaching you, and like all of this stuff wouldn't have happened. So like I'm also grateful for that. At the same time, this is what set me down this road of entrepreneurship. And it hasn't been necessarily the easiest road. So what I'm hoping to teach in this channel is a better way, because you don't have to go through the same pitfalls. You don't have to make the same mistakes I made. You can do better. So I applied to schools. I didn't get into 9 out of the 11 schools. I should have chosen one of the two, and I didn't. I said, you know what? Screw this. I know better. I'm going to show them. I'm going to retake the SATs. I'm going to increase my scores. I'm going to reapply, and then I'm going to get into my schools, right? Great mentality to have. I went back. I did just that. I increased my SAT scores. I got my real estate license, and I started working, and I thought I had this really cool story to tell. Instead of applying to another 11 colleges, I only applied to 4, and I got rejected by all 4. So all of a sudden, I find myself at 19, having made close to 6 figures. And that was really only doing half a year of real estate from the time I graduated to the end of the year. And I was like, you know what? Like, screw this. I've been in real estate now a while. I know how to make money. This real estate thing is really not that hard. Just to give some perspective on that, both my parents were in real estate at that time. So it wasn't like I was going out and trying this whole crazy new field. And the reason I decided to get into it is because my dad, who was a software engineer, literally by trade, that's what he went to school for. That's what he was. That's what brought my family here to the United States, was him being a computer engineer, software programmer. midlife crisis. He's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to go into sales. And he went into real estate sales with my mom. And he was tutoring under Mike Ferry and learning these scripts. And me being the theater kid, I was like, dude, first of all, you're not great at this. So let me help you. Second of all, if you're telling me that all I have to do is get really good at these scripts and I can go out and make a ton of money, like, dude, count me in. Easy, done. And that was my experience, right? Here I was 18, 19 years old, and I was great on the phones. I was setting appointments. Showing up on those appointments was a little bit different, and I'll throw it up here on the screen. But this is what I look like, right? Here is 18-year-old Pablo in his very first suit. Like the shoulder pads with the red tie and the super spiky hair. So imagine that shows up at your door and you're trying to sell a four, five, six, $700,000 house. Like you're gonna be like, no way, dude. Like, where's your parents? I actually had somebody ask me where my parents was, and I was like, oh, this is my dad right here. But we built a good system and we had a good rhythm and we were crushing it. And I thought, you know what? Maybe higher education is not for me. Maybe all of that stuff's not for me. I'm good with real estate. I'll show them, right? My whole story is I'll show them. I went full head first into real estate. And that's what I decided was going to be my passion, right? So I ate, slept, dreamt, drank real estate. It was always on my mind. It was like, how do I perfect my scripts? How do I overturn these objections? How many doors do I need to knock in order to do this? I used to door knock. I used to have this blue pinstripe suit that had little dog bite marks on the sleeve from when a dog viciously attacked my suit. But I went through it, right? Like when we talk about building a business from the ground up, it was literally having no shame, sitting hours on end on the phone and going out and knocking on doors. And that's what the people at the time were saying. That's literally what it took to be successful. That is until this little thing called global financial crisis of 2008. And in the global financial crisis of 2008, it was a mortgage crisis that fueled it all, right? So literally my industry is what led to like this whole atom bomb going off in the market. And all of a sudden I went from making six figures to struggling, right? Because now we're on the phone with banks. We're trying to help people do short sales. We're negotiating with the banks on doing foreclosures and bank-owned properties. And we would literally sit there on hold with the banks back east. We would start making phone calls at like 4 in the morning, 7 a.m. over there, just to sit on hold and say, hey, I know this house is valuated at 650,000, been on the market now 90 days, and we were finally able to get an offer for 600K. Can we make something work? Right? And actually having conversations with sellers and people who were already losing their houses and telling them, you want to sell this house, you're going to have to bring money to the table. It was really, really, really rough. I did not do well. My parents did not do well. They filed for bankruptcy. I filed for bankruptcy. I was 22 years old, filed for bankruptcy. So from there, I really had a couple of choices. I let this become my story. I could be one of those guys who peaked in high school and talked about the glory days and all of that, or I can go back at it and try to reinvent myself, try to find something that works, because damn it, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm going to figure it out. And I left real estate. I got out of real estate for a while. And where that led me was I went to community college, go UC Laney. Laney College is what we call it here in Oakland. And I lasted all of one semester there. For me, it was really hard from going from six figures, from being financially independent, from like having the cars, having the phone, like being able to do literally whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, to not having anything. Again, having to file for bankruptcy, for having to move back in with my parents and having to ask for money. And like, to say it was uncomfortable is an understatement. Probably the most uncomfortable I've ever been in my entire life. And it was literally just around having to depend on somebody else, my parents, after being so free and after achieving so much in such a short amount of time. And so being at college didn't do it for me. Right? I would literally spent only one semester at Laney. And in that semester, I met this guy, and he was very like-minded, and he was like, dude, I used to be a club promoter in Florida, like we should promote clubs, we can do what I was doing back there here. And I was like, okay, let's do it. And that turned out to be a scam. Long story short, I mean, at 22, getting paid to party is probably the coolest thing ever. Working Thursday, Fridays, Saturdays, easiest job in the world, and having it all be nightclubs, like hell yes. Like sign me up. And then there's like a lot of like cool things that come with that, social validation. Like, I never had to be one of those guys at the bar who was afraid to approach and talk to women because they were my events. I owned the place, right? And I would would go, hey, how are you? Are you having a good time? Like, how's it going? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, by the way, the next drink's on me. Hand out a drink ticket, blah, blah, blah. You got selfies, whatever. And it was awesome, right? At 22 years old, like, there's not anything cooler that you can do than get paid to party. And that's what I did until I got scammed. So I wake up one day in the apartment that I shared with this guy, and everything's gone. The money that we had stacked up was gone. My PS2, my TV, all of my stuff was gone. He was gone and like just left me, right? And that was the catalyst that led to having to file for bankruptcy, because all of a sudden I was left with this lease that I couldn't pay. So I had to get out of the lease. All of the money that I had was gone because I was convinced to keep it in a safe deposit box, not in a bank. And I didn't have like a line of credit. And I didn't have the right support system at home to be able to say, hey, can I get this money so that I don't have to file for bankruptcy? So all of those things led me to having to file for bankruptcy. And, you find yourself at 22 years old, a failed entrepreneur already, having already filed for bankruptcy. And you're like, dude, this sucks. Right? Maybe I'm not cut out for this. And so then I got a real job. And when I say a real job, what I mean is I had two options. And throughout this whole story time, you're going to find that there's always the option to victimhood or the option towards trying something different or reinventing myself. And I've always chosen this path, and I've always chosen to invest in myself. So I read a little book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, because I was the poor dad. I was like, well, I don't want to be a poor dad when when I actually have kids. So let me read this book, and I wish I would have read it sooner. I honestly, truly, truly wish I did, because one of the things that it taught me was how to think about wealth and money differently. And had I had that at 18, instead of spending six figures on dumb stuff that I can't even tell you about now, I could have probably bought several houses. I could have probably set myself up pretty well. This was before the first iPhone came out. Even if I had just done literally nothing else, but just bought a couple $100 of Apple stock at that point in time, like I would have crushed it. Like I'd be a millionaire many times over, but I didn't. And that's why you need to listen to me so that you don't make the same mistakes. So 22, filed for bankruptcy, having to start over. I read Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And my main takeaway from that book, aside from thinking about wealth and redefining wealth differently in my mind, was he was a best-selling author. And he talks about this in the book. It's really about sales. And he talked about getting really great sales experience working at Xerox. And I was like, well, hey, here's this guy, very successful, writing all of these books. He is a thought leader in my space, in the real estate space. Hell, if working at Xerox worked for him and really focusing and like nailing that sales muscle worked for him, maybe it can work for me. And so guess what I did? I went to go work at Xerox. And I was selling photocopiers. And I took the skills that I learned in real estate and I brought them into working at Xerox. Yeah, I was 22 years old and I was not trusted with the big accounts. So they put me to work under the major account. And in working with under him, first of all, he was pretty lazy. So it actually gave me even more experience. And this was the guy who was working with C-suite officers. So, back then it was Jarvis or Ask Jeeves.com. Netflix was like just barely starting out. Salesforce was there. Yahoo was one of our clients. So, I was out there and I was, 22 years old giving these presentations to C-suite, to C-level officers. And I learned so much from that experience. Right? Taking what I had learned in real estate sales and then combining it with business to business sales, I was like, dude, I get it. Like sales is where it is at. Things came to a head when a new territory opened up, which was literally my hometown. And instead of allowing me to take over that open area, they went ahead and they hired somebody else. They hired out for it. And for me at that time, again, 22 years old, I was like, screw this. How dare they? Don't they know how good I am? And the numbers were there. And the major account manager was definitely on my side. And he was saying, like, if you guys don't give Pablo this promotion, you're going to lose them. And they did. They lost me. And I was like, no, like, I understand the product. I understand how to make it work. My very first sales call at Xerox, I showed up. It was a 3-minute presentation. I showed up, talked to the guy. Hey, are you tired of your printers? Yeah. Would you like brand new printers that are going to cost you less? Yes. Do you want me to take care of that for you? Yes. Great. Sign here. I'll take care of the rest. By the way, if that sounds familiar, it's because it's a Mike Ferry script. Hey, do you absolutely need to sell this house? Yes. Do you want to price the home to sell, or do you want it to sit on the market for a long period of time? I don't want to price it to sell. Great. And do you want me to handle the sale for you? Yes. They say yes to those 3 questions. Great. Go ahead and sign the paperwork, and then let's jump into the bits and pieces, how it all works. And that's how it worked. And it, like, I called my manager 5 minutes after I was supposed to meet with him. He's like, dude, what happened? Are you late? Are you lost? I was like, no, it's signed. I'm coming back to the office. He's like, what? I'm like, it's signed. I'm coming back to the office. And he's like, ooh, but you just got there. I'm like, yeah, and it's signed. I'm coming back to the office. I'll see you in a minute. So from Xerox and from that experience, like, I knew sales was the next step. And so I got a job. I answered a Craigslist ad to actually work with a company and help them with real estate investing classes. And I became one of their sales guys. So, we had 2 speakers, and they would go out and they would speak and they would teach these classes. And I was one of the order form guys. Hey, talk to Pablo in the back if you want to sign up. So I would have the consultations, I would do the coaching sessions, and I would get people registered and signed up. And that was all well and good until I discovered that one of the gentlemen running it didn't actually believe in what he was selling. It was an expensive coaching package. And for me, discovering that they didn't stand behind what they were selling and what they were charging so much money for, I was like, dude, I'm out. And from there, again, I had options, most of which were, you got to bet on yourself. And I saw a job ad that was like, hey, do you have sales skills? I'm like, yes, that's me. And do you want to learn how to manage and build a business? I'm like, yes. I'm like, I know how to sell. Selling is like my bread and butter by this time. I'm 24, so I've been selling 24, 25. So I've been selling for like 6 years now, 7 years. So I got like a pretty good like base level of how to sell. And I joined this company selling office supplies, Quill office supplies. And if you've ever watched The Office, like, we actually sold Dunder Mifflin paper. Definitely relate to Dwight on a lot of levels when it comes to selling papers. And probably one of the biggest things, anyone at NBC is watching this, doesn't matter because the show's been off for like God knows how long. But nobody sells paper by the ream, ever. We sell it by the box. Come on. Nobody sells it by the ream unless you're going to a retail store and you're only buying the ream of paper. But like, there's like this whole episode where like Dwight is competing with the internet to see who sells the most. And the way they measure it is by reams of paper, and it drove me crazy as an actual paper salesperson. So Dwight, if you're watching this, so, man, and that was a crazy business. This was probably what I would determine the most as the hustle years. So like, if you thought sitting on the phones and going door to door on real estate was the hustle, like, that was like daycare, that was cakewalk compared to like this Spartan military training that we did. And it was hardcore. Like, we would literally drive out, and you would get dropped off at like 9, 10 in the morning, however long it took you to get to your territory. And then you would just walk until 4 p.m., right? So that's 6 hours. So 6 hours of selling, and literally go business to business, business to business, business to business. Hi, my name is Pablo Vadillo. I'm here with Quill. May I speak with the person who handles the office supplies? Great. Have you heard of Quill? Where do you guys usually go for your office supplies? Staples? Oh, awesome. We're just like Staples, except they're retail based and we're warehouse based, which means that we're able to give small businesses like yours all of the same great products, just at a discounted price. And we do free shipping usually the next day. So what would you say is your biggest expense around here? And more often than not, they would say it's ink or it's paper. And then we would say, great, point me to your machine and I'll get back to you. Right. And we would go back and we would do some math and say, how much are you paying for your ink? How much are you paying for your toner? Well, if you get it through us, here's how much you would pay, blah, 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 blah. I got really good at this, you guys. Like, really, really good at selling office supplies and just being out there. Good enough to branch off. Good enough to have my own offices and build out my own business. So the whole model, the way it was supposed to work is like, if you do everything the way they teach it, within 2 years of your first day, you get to take over as an owner and open up your own office. I did it in 22. I was like, I was an assistant manager, basically running the business because our manager had had a child and he needed to move back home. But the business needed to be ran and the next person up was me, so here I was as an assistant manager being a manager. So I had already ran the business by the time I took it over, and that business took me all of 18 months to crash. Yeah. So here's the mistakes I made and the key lessons I learned along the way in building a business from scratch. First of all, it's a lot harder than you think, and it's going to take a lot longer than you've been told. The reason why it's called baby steps is not because kids take little itty bitty steps, is because in order for a baby to get to that first step, they need to fall down a lot. They need to learn how to stand. They need to learn how to balance. There's like a lot of cognitive things and a lot of physical development that needs to happen before a baby can even take baby steps. Can you tell? I have a toddler at home, right? And so when you're building a business, when you're building something new, we say it's called taking baby steps, even though it sometimes doesn't feel like it, because you're literally toddling around, you're falling, you're learning how to stand, you're learning how to have your balance before you can even ever take any steps. And so we built out this great business. I was flying high. I thought I had it all figured out. And then I lost sight of the things that were really important. First of all, is treating people with dignity and respect. I stopped doing that. I became one of those, not a leader, I became a manager. And I should say, instead of pushing my people uphill, I was trying to pull them. And then I was upset when they weren't keeping up. And then I was upset and alienating them when they weren't, hitting the same sales numbers that I used to hit because, hey, I used to do it. Why can't you do it? And then stepping into the owner's chair, I was like, well, all right, well, I still need to sell. I still need to do all of these things. And then I was going out and I was competing with my guys. And I thought I was doing them a service by dunking on them all the time and by outselling them all the time. But what I was really doing is I was killing their mentality. I was so good at what I did that I made them like feel terrible that they couldn't do it too. Here I thought I was doing my people a service by going out and modeling the sales and dunking on them and just being great at it. And what I didn't realize is that, I was sending them out and I was putting them in the fire and then I was asking them, why are you getting burned? And I wasn't taking the time to develop them. I wasn't taking the time to really get to find out, okay, what is it that makes you you? What is it that makes you you? And how do we take what makes you you and how do we turn that into an amazing salesperson so that you can make money, so that you can provide, so that you can go build the life that you want? And that's the wonderful thing about sales, and it's the terrible thing about sales is that sales is the great equalizer. It's like going to the gym. You can tell who's paid their dues because there's no shortcuts. And with sales, it's a skill. And the great thing about skills is that anyone can learn it, right? So sales being the great equalizer, what I mean by that is that you can make as much as you want in sales, or you can make nothing, right? What I love about sales and what I have always loved about sales is that the only person who's in charge of how much money I can make is me. And it's directly correlated to how hard I'm willing to work, the service that I'm putting out, and how I carry myself, right? So, this was right in the middle of what I call the hustle years. And, I've told this story before where I'm like, yeah, I got the phone call and everybody quit. And the reality and the truth is that it was a lot less ceremonial than that. I kind of wish everybody called and quit and abandoned me on one day, but no, everybody stopped showing up suddenly. Or everybody just kind of like trailed off and people just stopped showing up until one day it was me and my assistant, my partner, and 7:30 rolls around, no one's in. 8 a.m. rolls around, no one's in. 8:30, the recruits, the people that we were recruiting show up. And I have no salespeople. I have nobody. And I have no sales meeting. I don't have a team. I feel like I lost a big part of myself that day. And going back, still, I really had two options. I could go back to school and restart and try to go back that traditional route, or I could keep going. And my family was telling me, like, dude, just stop. Like don't do this to yourself. Like you're working way too hard and not getting paid anywhere near enough for what you're doing. Like like the writing is on the wall. Everybody has seen it. Nobody wants to be a part of this. Why do you still want to be a part of it? And I had to believe. I had to believe that it was not just me that had alienated everybody into wanting to not work with me. I had to believe that something was salvageable. So I went on what we called the retrain, and I'm basically packed up my bags, closed down my office, and moved down to Los Angeles. And in that retrain, I got to learn new skills. I had to go back to business to consumer, selling AT&T, landlines and internet. And I got to work with Samsung doing LED flat screen displays for retail businesses. And eventually, all of that led to working with a company doing commercial grade LED lights, to which your boy was the very first one to make a sale. So yeah, I mean, here we are. This is 2014 at that time. And I was living, I was there, I was making pretty good money, but I was just so unhappy. Southern California was not kind to me. I didn't have enough money to be able to like go out and like do stuff and party and do those things. I was like scraping by. I'll throw it up on the screen here, but here's a photo of the air mattress that I used to sleep on. So when I say I moved down to Los Angeles, I mean like I packed up my suits, I packed up my shirt, my ties, my dress shoes, a couple like the clothes on my back, and an air mattress, and I moved. And I slept on that air mattress for the better part of 3 years. Until I finally said, you know what, enough is enough. Like again, I was making good money, well, relatively making money. And yeah, it was just to the point where I was like, it's not sustainable for the long term. I can't do this. I can't see myself continuing to do this. What would happen if I took everything I've learned? If I took my experience at Xerox, my first experience in real estate, my experience here in what we'll call Spartan training and the 6 to 8 hours a day of literal door-to-door sales. If I went back into real estate, yeah, I would crush it. Knowing what I know now, I would kill it. And that's what I did. I literally packed up my bags. I took what little money I had left and I started driving home. I didn't even have enough money to get home. I stopped somewhere in like Central California and I had to call my mom and ask her to transfer me $40 so that I could fill up my tank so that I could drive the rest of the way home. So that's where I was. I was so about like, I'm gonna go back into real estate. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna crush it. And it's gonna be awesome. And wait till you see me, boy. And I did. To my credit, I did. I came back. I joined Coldwell Banker in San Francisco. Had a pretty good first year back. That first year, coming into December and into January, I get a phone call from my old broker from when I was first in real estate. And he says, "Hey, Pablo, I see you've been with Coldwell Banker out there in San Francisco. I'm working with Keller Williams, and we're thinking about opening up another office with Keller Williams. And I would like for you to be our team leader." Now, if you're not familiar with Keller Williams and the team leader structure, it's essentially like the general manager. So like I would get to take the experience that I learned from my business to business business and go ahead and implement it into the real estate space. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. Let's do it. 2 days later, I'm on an airplane to Vegas for a Keller Williams event called Family Reunion, which was awesome and crazy. And aside from all of the motivation and all of like the hype and everything that you see there, what that event really solidified for me was the culture. It was the mission, the vision, the values, and the beliefs. And what I found is that it really aligned with who I am, what I wanted to do with my business, what I wanted my business to look like. So it was a no-brainer. I'm like, dude, I'm in. I am so in on this KW thing. Fast forward, we open up one office, and the office that we're supposed to open up never gets realized. So the guy that brought me in was running his own brokerage. That's where we met before. And when push came to shove for him to transfer his brokerage over to Keller Williams so that we could open it, he's like, "Nah, I don't want to do all that. I want to keep that brokerage, and I also want to be in KW." And Keller Williams was like, "Dude, no, you can't do that." So that whole idea of that second San Francisco office came and went. And as he went out the doors, so did that opportunity. But here I am. I'm fully committed to Keller Williams. I'm bought in now. And I was like, okay, well, let's figure it out. So from there, I filled in as an interim team leader for that office when their team leader stepped away and they were looking for a new one. I then became an assistant team leader in another office. I've been a productivity coach. Essentially, the different roles that you can have inside of a Keller Williams office. I've done it at some. And so with that experience and coming back, I was like, nah, like this is cool. I like running offices. I like pouring into agents. I like having the meetings. And then I got married. So now we're talking about 2019. We are literally 90 days into my marriage. And I'm sitting with my wife at her 5-year college reunion. And again, I'm unhappy. I'm unsettled. And she's like, "Well, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Well, listen, like we just got married. We have all of these big plans with our life and having a really hard time seeing how we're gonna get there if I'm stuck on a salary." And she's like, "Well, what are you thinking?" I said, I'm thinking about getting back into sales. I'm thinking about going back into real estate. I'm helping people make my salary in one or two transactions, and that's just crazy. These people have never sold real estate before. So like I feel like I'm doing a disservice to the people that I know and my sphere if I'm not the one handling the business and working with them. And so my wife, my lovely wife, Annie, if you're watching this, I love you. You're the best. And she was like, okay, I guess. Now, like we weren't making a lot of money like back then. And if you've ever felt like you've had to start from scratch, or you have no clue where to go next, I've been there time and time again. So this time I wasn't just going back into real estate sales. I had a plan, I had a strategy. It wasn't just like, great, gonna go back and do it. I joined United Home Group, which is an expansion team inside of Keller Williams. And the big plug for me was you get access to the tools that a top producer gets without having to pay for them yourself. And I was like, that's awesome. I don't have to go out and pay for a CRM. I don't have to pay for this, like transaction coordinator, listing coordinator, all of that is already taken care of. All I need to do is come in, plug in, and produce. And I freaking crushed it, you guys. So that's 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. Amazing years in business. I went from being a solo agent to taking over as the area director here in the San Francisco Bay Area for our team. We grew our team up to 15 agents. And then I took over as the regional director where we had a 30-person team. And over that time frame, we were able to help hundreds of people buy homes, hundreds of families get into homes, close chapters, start new chapters. And, when I think of business and when I think of the things I've accomplished and the people that came to work with me and seeing where they're at now, that's been one of the most rewarding experiences professionally that I've had. And so we built this huge little empire and the market started shifting middle of 22 we came into our first recession and I started trying to get ahead of the market and thinking, is the right way to grow a real estate business just by having tons of people and hoping somebody sticks and some of them sell? Or is it by having a highly specialized team that it's like having a team of surgeons that can come in and be precise and deliver high quality service and do a lot of it, right? At volume, at capacity. And so that's what I started working on. And I started building out a luxury brand for our expansion team. That was until we had our baby. And look, our baby came along. And, I found myself for the first time not reaching for work and realizing that, everything I've been doing the last 15 years has been for me to be able to be present with my kiddo. And so when our baby came along, I had another fun conversation with my wife where I told her I don't want to be driving all over California. I don't want to be on the phone dealing with fires and problems and this and that. And I want to be home and I want to help and support you. And so that's what I've been doing the last 18 months. And man, has it been a ride. So, when I share that I'm uniquely qualified to teach this class and then to have this channel, it's because I've been through it. Having had to file for bankruptcy at 22 will change your life. And the thing is that if you're a student athlete, if you're coming into like thousands of dollars, there's no reason why you can't, number one, start setting yourself up and start building. And then then I became a dad and my perspective changed. It shifted again, right? And right around that time, I went back into sales. 20, 21, 22, amazing years. In the end of 2021, Keller Williams launched what is called the sports and entertainment division. And I was like, you know what? I mean, you guys see the guitars, right? Like, if you heard my story, I've band, track, sports. This is me. Right? Hi guys, sports and entertainment. Talk to your guy Pablo. And I joined. I was like, yes, this is what I want to be a part of. And I've been lucky enough that to this day I still hold the record for the biggest referral that's been worked on inside of the Keller Williams Sports and Entertainment division in working with an athlete selling up to 10 million in properties. So $2 million property and then purchasing an $8 million property. Such a great story. We will dive into that in another episode that deserves its own attention. And what that really opened me up for and really opened my eyes to was this market and working with athletes. And that's the biggest sale that we've had. And I've also worked with the Niners, the Giants, and the A's and the Warriors with players that haven't bought anything, right? Helping them get leases. And I don't get paid when an athlete leases instead of buys. However, the one that really opened up my eyes was when I was working with the Warriors player. Now, this is a kid, 21 years old at the time, and he just moved over here. He's not from the US. So he's coming into the US. He's having to learn like the cultural differences. And we are having to get him a new apartment, right? So the season ended and literally there wasn't anyone to help him get into the next lease. So I got a call from his agent. He was like, help my guy out. And I'm like, I got you. And so we went out and we were looking at different apartment complexes in the city and going through them. And here's the thing. I thought with his type of salary, he could afford something nice, like up here, right? When I tell you that this is the type of mentality I wish all of my athletes had, this guy's like, yeah, no, I can definitely afford here. I mean, I could probably like live here. But I actually want to live down here. And he's like, no, that's too much money. This guy, he was looking at studio and one bedroom apartments, right? And like the one of the studios we looked at is like the same footprint as this garage I'm sitting in. And he was like, yeah, no, I'm cool with this. I'm like, no, like, let's get you something a little nicer. But here we are, we're working with him. We're helping him get a lease. I'm not getting paid on any of this. Not that it matters. And when it's time to go decorate his apartment, we're not going to like Restoration Hardware. We literally drove to Ross. We drove to Ross. We got him all of the essentials. Um, they had a play-in game, and while he was out of town for the play-in game, my wife and I went to Target and we got him a bunch of the other stuff that he needed. And like again, this guy probably not probably, like on a yearly basis makes more money than I do. However, it was really important for me to help him get himself situated, make him feel at home. And I really started thinking, I'm like, okay, if this is what it's like for a 21-year-old on the professional level, what is it like for our college athletes? And, as we're going through this transaction, this whole new division inside of Keller Williams opens up, which is the name, image, and likeness division. Thus, the NIL Real Estate Guy was born. And I came into this knowing that NIL is going to be tricky, right? Because there's a difference between true name, image, and likeness, and that's going out and getting paid by a third party for your name, your image, and your likeness. If you're helping to sponsor their brand, or if they're sponsoring you and you're getting paid for that, like that's how it should be worked. Right. What we're seeing a lot of now is the pay to play, where you're seeing private collectives from schools, paying millions, in some cases, millions of dollars to these athletes to come play at the school. And that's created lawsuits, that's created all of this wild, wild west terrain when it comes to name, image, and likeness. And if I can help, even if it's just one athlete avoid bankruptcy, I know that this channel has been successful. So, if this story resonates with you, if you want to learn how to turn NIL into something more, and you're like, that Pablo guy is pretty cool and he's got a crazy story, but you know what? I'm willing to listen to him. I know there's probably no one that made it this far. And if you did drop blank your name, is awesome in the comments. And I'll send you out something special because if you did make it this far and you listened all the way through, you definitely deserve something from me. And I'll make sure that it's a good piece of value. Hit that like, hit the subscribe button. It really helps me out, seeing as how I'm a new channel. And hit that bell icon so you get notified anytime we upload anything new. Thank you again so much for watching. And if there's anything I can do for you, please drop it in the comments. I would love to be of service. If there's anything that resonated with you throughout my story, or you would like to share a part of your journey, please drop that into the comments as well. I would love to hear from you.